I guess Adopt a Highway started with my daughter, my firstborn, and the feeling of being lost, and as a father, and just kind of the chaos, and you're trying to figure out where you put that handbook, and then you realize you don't have a handbook, and it was just that, it's a very specific to the father, I think, feeling of a lack of instincts when it comes to a child, and really, you realize your only job is just to keep it alive. You can't imbue it with yourself. You don't have the maternal connection, but you do have a job, and that's to keep it alive. And even that was somewhat daunting to me. So it started with my daughter, and just those two feelings of pure love and pure fear together. Well, I think, I wanted to deal in some themes like purpose and redemption and hope, and I guess I was looking for an archetype of some archetype who had lost everything and then found the most pure form, I guess, which is a baby. And so I started with an ex-con. And I have a lot of love for, as I've said before, for flawed individuals and misunderstood and damaged individuals is typically the men I play as an actor, and I have a lot of interest in this broken system, our penal system, our country's penal system, but specifically California's, which is the worst in the world. And it's in the end a story. It's a slice of life about one man, but there are many other stories out there. Well, I used a lot of my own life. I used a lot of my father's relationship with myself. My father's a stamp collector. But there was a jumping off point. There was an article I read, a really beautiful article about him, written by an ex-con who starts in his cell, and he kind of just writes about the process of being ejected, of re-entry. And that's really what I wrote. So it starts in the cell, and the idea actually for the original idea for the opener was it was going to be a oneer. So it was all one big 15-minute, prologue of this man starting in a cell, and you walk him through the jail into the administration wing, and all of that is real life. That's what happens. It's not like the movies. It's much more benign, and there's no and it's much more confusing, and these men and women are just ejected without a handbook. So I kind of started there too. That was really interesting to me, that administrative steps that we don't see, and all that information that is not given to the men and women before they are kicked back out into society with a huge scarlet letter on them still. Yeah, I knew as an exercise that I wanted to write a film that didn't challenge us using kind of the tropes that we see often in movies, which is sex and death, or violence, or drugs. So the exercise was I didn't want to write a gun, sex, drugs, rock and roll. I only wanted to see how deep can I find the stakes in a man who's not competing for a scene. He also, he's a bit touched, and so there's a Lenny Smalls type element to him, which was written, and there's a beta to him, and I wanted to see can I write a script that doesn't compete using those tropes, that exists out of pure hope and redemption and love. And by the way, that's a really scary thing for me, because I don't like using my heart. I'm not a Romeo. I'm a Iago, I don't lean on those. I lean on a lot of the things we all love. I love Quentin Tarantino. I love sci-fi. I love horror. So I needed to challenge myself to write something original that It wasn't using any of those as a crutch. Well, Ethan was my dream. I wrote the role with him in mind because, you know, I've been watching Ethan for a long time, especially his theater. You know, when I came out of school, I wanted to be in his theater, which was Malapart. I wanted to be a part of his crew, and I've loved everything Ethan's done, but Ethan had a beta quality to him early on in his career that I found so interesting because he's so able to defer status depending on the role. So he's an alpha in some roles, and then he hides in other roles. And I just wanted to see, could I get someone like Ethan to achieve and to find that beta again? It goes without saying, I don't need to tell you who Ethan is or Ethan Hawke is or what he's done. I don't think Ethan's having a moment. Ethan's been here this whole time. Ethan's a national treasure. Ethan is one of the greatest actors of his generation, and he will continue to be here. So while he is having a bit of a moment right now, I think it's actually more we are finally catching on, and we're recognizing it. And I heard somebody say Ethan is the most underrated actor of his generation, and I just disagree with that. Ethan is doing what he wants to do. He's a writer, he's a novelist, he's a theater director, he is a theater actor, and that doesn't necessarily fall in line with how we view achievements in acting. But Ethan has been doing this from day one. So it was no surprise to me. The biggest surprise to me was that he was able to take all those hats off and put on an actor's hat and say, every day in the morning, how do we achieve your vision? And I couldn't have asked for a better number one and a better artist. Yeah, it's true. Blumhouse gives you full control. I mean, you know, they have a certain model, financial point model, but you have full control. No one ever looked over my shoulder. No one ever second-guessed me. Obviously, it's all collaboration in the end, and they're all smart, so you want everyone's opinions. But the fact of the matter is they wanted to make the same film I did. And when you bring a film like this to Blumhouse, you assume they might have some notes. But actually, what I heard was, this is our Tender Mercies, and that is the movie that I wanted to make. Was literally Tender Mercies, which was one of my favorite movies. So when I heard Cooper Samuelson and Jason say, this is our Tender Mercies, I needed to look no further. They wanted to make the same film, and the rest is history.